My partner's betrayal. He stole millions and vanished. What happened next will shock you. The chilling phone call still rings in my ears. A ghost of betrayal that haunts me even now. You'll never find me. He'd hissed, a smug satisfaction dripping from every syllable. My business partner, my friend Vance, have vanished with millions, leaving me to face the wreckage of our shattered company and a mountain of accusations. You think you know someone, you trust them with your livelihood, your reputation, and in a single, calculated move, they obliterate everything. This is the story of how I clawed my way back from the brink, and the one last play he never saw coming. All right, I've tried my best to put this entire nightmare into words, but bear with me because it was a soul-crushing roller coaster, and the bitterness still lingers in my mouth like poison. So, I'm Rodger, mid-40s, a finance guy by trade. For the better part of the last 6 years, I ran an investment consulting business in Dallas, Texas, with my friend, or should I say former friend, Vance Montgomery. Vance and I had been inseparable since college. He was the classic charismatic type, always the life of the party, sharp as a tack. That's probably why, when he proposed going into business together, I didn't think twice. Looking back now, I should have seen the flashing neon warning signs. But hindsight, as they say, is 20/20. Vance and I created Montgomery and Watts, hoping to help small businesses find their footing. We identified promising companies and helped them grow. We made a pretty good team, at least for a few years. Then, the opportunity that was just too good to be true landed in our laps with a sickening thud. Rodger, I just got off the phone with a potential whale of a client. Vance practically vibrated with excitement as he barged into my office. I looked up from my computer, instantly wary. How big are we talking? Multi-millions. Buddy. Callum Harris, old money type. He's got trust funds, family money works. Vance's eyes lit up as he painted the picture. And the more I heard, the more apprehensive I became. You know this guy well, I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral, but it wasn't enough to shake my nagging gut feeling that something was wrong. Oh, I've known him for years. Trust me, Rodger, he's eccentric, but he's got deep pockets. I tried to hide my skepticism. Eccentric how? Relax. Man, you're always worrying about the wrong things. Callum wants us to set up a fund, just for him. Repackage some assets, make a killing. If we pull this off, we're set for life. You'll be sipping margaritas on some beach by Christmas. Despite the undeniable appeal of his pitch, something just didn't sit right with me. I'd been in finance long enough to know when a deal reeked of trouble. But Vance had a way of convincing people, and against my better judgment, I agreed to move forward. We set up the fund, and sure enough, the rush of seeing that kind of money on our balance sheet was thrilling, I'll admit. But as quickly as it appeared, it started to vanish into a black hole of unexplained transactions. The problem was, I hadn't seen any paperwork on those buyouts. Vance brushed me off every time I asked for it. Come on, Rodger, he'd say, rolling his eyes. I'm handling it. Why don't you take a vacation? Go relax for once. One Tuesday, Vance didn't show up to the office. I didn't think too much of it at first. Wednesday, and he was still mute. By Thursday, his phone was going straight to voicemail, and nobody had heard a peep from him. By Friday, panic was clawing at my throat. I drove to his house in Highland Park, rang the doorbell, pounded on the door, even checked round back. But there was no sign of him or his car. Just as I was about to leave, my phone buzzed. Vance was finally calling me back. Vance, where the hell are you? I exploded, my voice shaking with a mixture of rage and fear. Rodger, relax. Would you? Relax. You've gone a WO with millions of dollars of Callum's money, and you're telling me to relax. I could feel my blood boiling, turning to acid in my veins. That's right, Rodger, relax. You won't be seeing me anytime soon. The tone of his voice made the hairs on my arm stand on end. I swallowed hard. What are you talking about? Rodger, you're always so predictable. He was almost laughing now, a cruel, mocking sound that cut me to the core. I've taken care of everything. I knew you'll never find me. And with that, he hung up. I stood on his doorstep, staring at my phone in disbelief, my heart racing like a trapped bird. Vance had vanished with millions, leaving me to deal with the catastrophic fallout. I raced back to the office and called Janine. If anyone could help me unravel this mess, it was her. Rodger, I've been trying to tell you for weeks, she said, her voice laced with a weary resignation. I've noticed strange transactions in our account. I brought it up, but you brushed it off. I felt a surge of shame. I'd let my loyalty to Vance blind me, and now we were both paying the price. Can you trace any of it? I asked, desperate for some kind of lead. Rodger offshore accounts. I'm not even sure if he used our accounts at all. It's like he set this up from the start. I barely slept that weekend, replaying every conversation, every warning sign Janine had given me. How could I have let this happen? How could I have been so blind? But I couldn't sit around feeling sorry for myself. I hired a private investigator and tasked him with combing through every document, every scrap of evidence we had. Days turned into weeks, filled with endless paperwork and dead ends. Then, One night as I was leaving the office, I noticed a sticky note on my desk. It was Vance's unmistakable scroll. It said, "I told you you'd never find me." He'd been here. He'd been in my office. I could practically feel the smug, satisfied smirk radiating from him, even miles away. And that's when something inside me snapped. He wanted me to chase him, to play along in this twisted game he'd set up. If he wanted a game, I'd give him one. I remembered something Janine had mentioned a few weeks back. She had a mutual friend with Vance, a woman named Alice Gardner. I dug out Alice's contact info and gave her a call, hoping she might shed some light on where Vance might be hiding. We met at a cafe on the outskirts of Dallas. She looked nervous, constantly glancing around. I knew Vance had some strange ideas about life, but I never thought he'd go this far. Strange ideas? I asked, leaning forward, my voice tight with anticipation. Alice hesitated, looking around like someone might overhear us. Vance has this obsession with being free. To him, everything and everyone is a tool. He told me once that he'd never let anyone tie him down. He even had a getaway plan. A getaway plan? Yes, he said he had a place he could go. She hesitated again, clearly uncomfortable, but I never knew where. I thanked her and paid for her coffee, my mind racing. Every friendly drink, every late night brainstorming session, it had all been a charade. And the worst part was, he was enjoying this. He was out there, laughing at me. But then Alice mentioned something else, almost as an afterthought. A mutual friend they had in Phoenix. The idea was ludicrous, a long shot, but I couldn't ignore it. I booked a flight to Phoenix, hoping against hope that somehow I might stumble onto something. I spent days combing through bars, restaurants, anywhere Vance might conceivably be. It was exhausting, demoralizing, and just when I was about to give up, to accept that he'd truly gotten away with it, I spotted him, hunched over a drink in a dimly lit bar. He looked almost pathetic. I couldn't believe it. This was the man who'd stolen millions, shattered our business, and turned my life upside down. Now hunched over his whiskey, looking like a defeated gambler. Part of me wanted to turn around and leave him to his misery, but I knew this was my only chance to confront him, to demand answers, to reclaim some semblance of justice. I walked up to him, my heart pounding in my chest. He took a long, slow sip of his drink before finally turning to me, that ever-present smirk barely flickering across his lips. "Rodger," he said, almost laughing, "you actually came all this way. I have to admit, I didn't think you had it in you. You took everything from me." "Vance," I said, my voice dangerously low. "Everything. You destroyed my career, my reputation, our clients' trust. All of it for what? So you could play some twisted game." He chuckled, a hollow, condescending sound that made my blood boil. "Moralistic Rodger, do you really think I cared about any of that? This isn't about destroying you. It's about freedom. I wanted it, and I took it. You could have done the same." I felt a surge of anger, my hands clenching into fists. "Freedom? You call this freedom? Running, hiding, stealing, ruining people's lives. That's your idea of freedom?" He leaned back against the bar with a look of almost genuine pity. "Rodger, you've never understood. People spend their whole lives in cages, mortgages, families. Loyalty, you were part of that. I was done being tied down. I wanted to live with enough to start fresh, live on my terms. And if you were too blind to see it coming, that's on you." I took a deep breath, struggling to stay calm. "So, that's it. You use people, lie to them, steal from them, and you think that makes you free? You're delusional." "Oh, I don't expect you to understand. That's the thing about you, Rodger. You're so predictable. You're willing to play the game as long as the rules are followed. But life isn't like that. People who win don't play by the rules. I trusted you, Vance. 4 years. I was just smarter." At that moment, I realized there was no reasoning with him, no getting him to see the impact of what he'd done. But I had one last card to play, and I was about to use it. "You think you're so smart, don't you?" I said, my voice lower and steady, a venomous hiss. "You thought you covered your tracks, set up the perfect scheme, but there's something you don't know." He looked at me, a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "And what's that?" "I knew you'd try something like this, eventually. I was waiting for the moment to be right, so I took precautions." I paused, keeping my face as neutral as possible, masking the anxiety that was gnawing at me from the inside out. "Callum and I helped file for an investigation. The authorities are tracing everything, every shell company, every offshore account, every little trick you thought would keep you hidden. You're not untouchable. They're already onto you." Just for a second, his bravado wavered. He paused and then I pressed on, not letting him see any doubt. "You thought you could just disappear with millions and leave me to clean up the mess? You're not as clever as you think. The feds are coming through every account you use. There's nowhere left for you to hide. Please, you don't have it in you to set me up," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Oh, I didn't set you up, Vance. You set yourself up, and now you're out of moves. It's only a matter of time before they find you." For the first time, Vance looked genuinely afraid. His confidence was crumbling, his bravado faltering. "You wouldn't do that to me," he whispered, the cockiness finally gone. "We were friends. You abandoned me without a second thought, left me to take the blame. And you think we're still friends? He shook his head, desperation creeping into his eyes. Rodger, come on, we've known each other forever. We can work something out. I'll give you a cut. We can both walk away from this. Just forget the whole thing and let me go. You think I'd want any part of your blood money? I spat, disgusted. There's no coming back from this, Vance. He opened his mouth to argue, but the words died in his throat. I watched as he deflated, his shoulders slumping, his eyes filled with a hollow despair. After a long, agonizing silence, he finally asked, "So what now?" I leaned in close, my voice barely above a whisper. "Now, you face the consequences." Just as I said those words, two men walked into the bar. They looked like they could have been anyone in Sinisman. Tourists, but I knew exactly who they were. I'd seen them once before, showing the ID in my office. I didn't even have to say a word. One of them stepped forward, flashing a badge. "Mr. Montgomery," the agent asked, his tone cool and professional. "We'd like you to come with us." The color drained from Vance's face as reality crashed down upon him. For the first time, his expression revealed the depth of his terror. They escorted him out of the bar, his face ashen, his movements jerky and reluctant, like a man walking to his own funeral. I stayed seated, watching as they led him outside, handcuffed and finally cornered. His days of scheming and manipulating were over. The door swung shut behind him, and the bar returned to its usual murmur of quiet conversations and clinking glasses. I sat there for a long time, processing what had just happened, the weight of betrayal and anger slowly giving way with a strange sense of relief. When I finally stood to leave, I felt like a dam had broken inside me. The nightmare was over. I had faced down a man I once considered my best friend, looked him in the eyes, and delivered the final blow to his carefully constructed world. I would never get back the years I'd lost, or the business he'd ruined. But for the first time since he disappeared, I felt free. In the weeks that followed, the fallout from Vance's rippled through our clients and business contacts. Some were furious, demanding explanations and assurances, but most were understanding, recognizing that I had been just as much a victim as they were. Callum eventually got most of his money back, thanks to the authorities' swift action. As for me, I spent the following months rebuilding. Janine stayed on, pouring her energy into a new venture, one that had nothing to do with Vance and everything to do with honesty and transparency. Years later, I sometimes think back to that day at the bar in Phoenix. Vance thought he could outsmart the world, manipulate people like pawns, but in the end, he learned the hard way that no amount of charm or scheming can hide the truth forever. Business isn't just about making money, it's about integrity, trust, and the people who stand by you when the chips are down. Vance never understood that. He lost everything. And as for me, I came out stronger, with a lesson I'll carry for the rest of my life. That relief, though, there was no patching it. I thought I'd feel a rush of satisfaction, maybe even a sense of triumph, but all I felt was relief, and a nagging awareness that the sense of betrayal and bitterness still would get at me. I knew this wasn't something I could just walk away from emotionally. Vance wasn't just a business partner. He'd been my closest friend, someone I trusted deeply. In the days that followed, the authorities swept through our records, gathering every piece of evidence they could find. They asked me to go over the financial records, to comb through each email thread, each contract, searching for signs of Vance's suspicious transactions. Every new discovery was like another stab in the back, a fresh reminder of his treachery. One evening, as I was leaving the office late, Janine caught up with me in the parking lot. She had that look, the one she'd gotten in the habit of wearing since this all began, half concerned, half determined. "Rodger, you can't keep doing this," she said, crossing her arms. "You're working yourself into the ground. You've done more than anyone could have expected. It's time to let go." I don't know how to let go, Janine. I keep thinking maybe I missed something. Maybe there was a clue I should have seen. "Rodger, he planned this for years. This isn't your fault, and you can't keep punishing yourself for it." But she was right. I'd spent enough time ruminating on my failures. The time had come to reclaim my life. After that night, I started to make small changes. I began winding down Montgomery and Watts, restructuring the business into a new firm, one that I would run alone. I renamed it Watts Financial, shedding the last remnants of Vance's influence. I redefined what the firm stood for. I spent hours in meetings, brainstorming ways to build trust and demonstrate our commitment to ethical practices. Honesty and transparency became my guiding principles. Though the media remained eager to pick apart the scandal, I avoided the limelight as much as possible, focusing instead on rebuilding relationships and restoring our reputation. The damage he had done was staggering. It was strange facing him across the courtroom. He even had the nerve to flash a grin in my direction, as if we were still on the same team, as if he were proud of his cleverness. But all I felt was a profound sense of pity. Here was a man who had everything talent, charisma, intelligence, and he'd thrown it all away for greed and a misguided sense of freedom. When it was my turn to testify, I kept my voice steady and focused. I didn't speak of our friendship. I spoke of the facts, of financials, the evidence that painted a clear picture of Vance's deceit. When I finished, I think, in that moment, Vance realized it was over, that there was no coming back from this. Vance was sentenced to a long stretch in federal prison of fraud and embezzlement. The last I heard, he was still trying to appeal, still refusing to accept any responsibility for what he'd done. That was Vance, through and through. He could never accept that he lost. In his mind, he'd always be the hero of his own story. I finally understood that nothing I could say or do would ever change that. After the trial, things slowly returned to normal. The scandal faded from the headlines, and I focused on building my new firm from the ground up. Callum got most of his money back, but he was done with investing. He called me once to say he was done with it all and that they couldn't stomach the thought of putting his trust in anyone like Vance again. I understood. I felt the same way. Janine stayed with me, a rock of support through all the rebuilding. As the anger and betrayal faded, it was replaced by a quiet resolve to keep moving forward, to create something lasting and meaningful. I started letting people back in, reopening myself to friendship and collaboration. And as the years went by, I found peace. Sometimes, when I walk into the office, I see a photo on my desk, a picture from those early days of Montgomery and Watts, to idealistic young men ready to take on the world. It reminds me of who I was and who I am now. It shows me that good things can come out of the lesson learned when bad things happen and when that crumble, to replace the bad with something real, and that was what truly matters. And every once in a while, in the quiet moments, I think about Vance. I wonder if he ever regretted it, if he ever fought back to the life he destroyed, not just for me, but for himself. I'll probably never know. He's likely still clinging to that twisted idea of freedom he once told me about. As for me, I found my freedom in something else, in integrity, in trust, in the people who stood by me, and in the lessons I learned. So, Reddit, after hearing everything, do you think I handled the situation correctly? Should I have done something differently? Was there any way to salvage the situation once Vance disappeared? Or was my course of action the only reasonable path forward? What would you have done in my shoes? Knowing what you know now, your honest opinions and feedback would mean a lot to me, as I'm still processing the emotional toll of this betrayal and trying to make sense of everything that happened.